Hello, everyone, and welcome to another Friday Business Intelligence Tip. Today, we're going to be talking about SQL Server tables versus views. I get the question a lot, and I also get in the argument a lot, I guess, with various reporting professionals where they've heard the rumor that you should always use views when writing reports and never use tables. Well, that's a case of taking something that potentially is the right answer and going to the extreme on it by saying always use views instead of tables. I'm going to start out by describing each one of those, what they are, and then that hopefully will shed some light on what the difference is between a view and a table and why you should use one versus the other each time. So for those of you that are advanced on the database side, this might be a little bit 101 for you, but for those of you that aren't necessarily database people, hopefully you'll find this helpful for you. So the first thing I want to talk about are tables. Tables are traditionally what you're used to seeing when you're looking at database information, and that is the segment on the database that actually stores your data. So if I go ahead and we're going to hide this thumbnail and go over to my SQL Management Studio here. A table is something like if I say select star from GL names, for instance. GL names is a table that I have in the sample database, and that stores the data. So as information is entered into a system or I update things, that's stored in a storage mechanism called a table. So that's typically where the data is. Now, what a view is a saved query. And what a lot of people think that you should do is create queries like I did here, select all from GL names, but put it into basically a virtual table, for lack of a better term. So I can say create a view, create view, we'll call this webinar as, and then it's this select statement. So if I create this view called webinar, execute that, it creates it in here. And now what I can do is I can say select star from webinar and execute that. And there's my view. Now it's the same exact data as the table. The difference is when I update something, I'm going to update it in the table, not the view. So the view in this case doesn't give you any advantages. I know there are some people that think there's some security benefits to that, but there's a slight performance penalty because it's got to go through another layer of determining what webinar is to basically evaluate it as select star from GL names instead of the webinar. So there's actually a slight price to pay there. But if you go back to what a view is, which is a saved query, where they come in handy is if you're trying to do things crossing tables or filtering down on things. So instead of select star from GL names, I could say where company equals 100. Got that data, we'll try that. There's just one row in that case. So in this case, I could just call this create a view that is webinar 100. And that will be my view name. So now if I wanted to give this to certain users, I could say select star from webinar 100. And they're only going to see that one. So there are some security benefits on that if you want to use this like security and just grant access to people with those views to that, or convenience if you're looking at things for current year, current period, or things like that, where they're filtering down the data that's within the table. So to summarize, a table is the actual storage mechanism where the data lives. A view is a query against tables that's saved and given a name. And so anytime you need to filter something or join across tables and save that off as a query, you can give that a name, and that's called a view. And that's where you would use it. Otherwise, just use the tables. You're actually going to be a slightly faster performance, and there's no real benefit to you on using the views or over the tables in that case. So hopefully you found today's session informative on the difference between a table and a view. they look the same in most reporting tools, and that you're just selecting your data from a named object, but how the data is stored is the difference between it. So hope you found today's session useful, and we'll talk to you again next week. Thank you.